Welcome to my warts and all strip down of a Honda 404 engine. This was filmed in 2016. The engine is out of a Honda 404 Super F1 model, which was produced and distributed in the UK market from the mid to the late 70s. Unlike the Haynes manual, who use a brand new engine or pretty new engine, I'm going to actually show you how I stripped this engine down. I've got no experience on multis. I cut my teeth on two strokes and old British bikes in the 70s, so most of the engineering principles I'm using are pretty standard. As I say, I'm not a mechanic by trade or anything. The beauty of today's market is that at least you can look it up on YouTube when you get some problems, and there will be some. I've cleaned the engine, but already I've found quite a few problems. So having said that, I've degreased the engine with a proprietary degreaser. In the old days we used to use gunk and geyser, but now we seem to be using essence of orange and herbs or something. I found a few problems on the engine. I tried to take the spark plugs out. First one I did sadly has stripped off, so I'm going to have to deal with that problem. So that's the first problem. The spark plug just shattered it. I mean, it didn't even try. It's a 40-year-old engine, so they've probably been in there forever. The two most important tools that you could possibly have to dismantle an engine, in my experience, are this first thing is plus gas A dismantling fluid. If you're going to use it, spray it on everywhere, on every bolt, every nook and cranny that's going to need it, and leave it for 24 hours, and trust me, it's fantastic. The second spark plug, when I sprayed that, left it for, well, actually 48 hours. It came out. It was tough, but it came out. And the other tool which I would recommend is a impact screwdriver. This is one I bought at a local store, and basically you just hit it on the end with a big hammer, and it just basically breaks the seal between stiff nuts. And these are Japanese or mid-Japanese bikes, all have hideous crosshead type sort of screws in the outer casings, which are a real pain to get out when they've been in that long. Took me forever to get these insulators off. First they wouldn't come off even with a screwdriver, with this impact screwdriver, but 24 hours later managed to get them all out just by tapping it on the end. I'll show you that later on. Looking at the top of the engine, had a few issues, and I became a bit of a filmmaker, and I've already pre-undone some of the bolts. First thing I found is a problem with this one here, stripped. I'm going to have to deal with that. It's just not tightening, it's loose. Here on the breather, there's a bolt missing, just there. The other problem I found already is one of these exhaust studs had snapped off, and I've tried to use an extractor, an easy out. So I've drilled this here, put the easy out in, and even on the first turn with quite a big tug, the whole thing snapped off. So now not only have I got the existing stud in there, but I've actually got an easy out snapped in there as well, so I'm going to have to deal with that later. And the other problem I had was these Tappet covers here. Again, I've pre-undone those. It looks like they're a pain when you look on the internet. The actual size is 17mm, but some have been rounded off and worn out. And to get those off, what I've had to do is use a 16mm socket, and because it's soft aluminium, I've had to sacrifice the head, braid them on, and then again using the impact screwdriver, a couple of taps, and they've come out. So I've had to replace these. They're about £3.50 each off the internet. I've managed to get 4 really good ones off a supplier, if you're interested in that. So I'm going to start basically following the Haynes manual, which is this one here. It covers quite a few of the models, and the pain is that you have to read the text quite carefully, because some of the instructions apply to other models. you have to be specific to your particular model. I've also got these off the internet, which is a breakdown of all the engine components, so any bits that are missing or need replacing, I'll have the exact part numbers and I can refer to these diagrams. So here we go. First thing the Haynes manual says to do is to take the breather cover off. So here we go with the breather cover. I've actually undone some of these nuts and they've all come off pretty good. Should be nothing untoward with undoing these. It's a 10mm socket on the breaker bar. Off it comes, and once they're off, I'm just going to bag them and get them ready for aqua blasting or whatever system we're going to do to clean these off. Pretty straightforward. As I said before, there's actually one of these bolts missing. They're shouldered flange bolts. I think they're 6mm. I always keep a little guide on the back here so I can check. Yep, 6mm metric. And yeah, that's loose, so that's off easy. Lovely. Looking at this, there's nothing special about the cover. There's that breather part where the breather tube goes on, no moving parts. There's a gasket around there. I'm assuming that when you get the gasket set for the full engine, that'll be included. If it isn't, I'll let you know. As I explained before, I had a couple of problems with some of these caps where they've been rounded off, and the process I did here was to actually use a big lump hammer and bray on a 16mm socket rather than the correct 17mm. And with the impact screwdriver, not only does it have a holder on for the bits, but it also has a 1/2 inch drive on the end of there, so you can stick your socket on the end of there, put that on there, give it a belt with a hammer just to give it a loosen, so you just tap it on the end there. I used a bigger hammer than that, by the way, and they popped off fine, so all of them are loose, and so that's the next stage. So we're now looking at these tappet covers removed, 4 on this side, 4 on the back. These will operate the valves for the exhausts and the inlets. The tappets will be comprised of a lock nut and a little tiny sort of like a square-ended bolt. Now, having looked at my diagram, it looks like these could come out completely, and the last thing I want to do is drop that down into the engine, and depending on how loose the tappets are, some are loose and some won't be, depending on where the engine cycle is in its rotation. Some will be tight, some will be loose. What I've done is I've got myself my 9mm socket. It effectively undoes the lock nut, which I've done there, but it's not turning where on the tight ones, it's not turning these little square ends. So I don't have a tappet tool, but what I do have is a spoke key that I used on a push bike, and one of those ends fits perfectly, and I've taken the risk on the tight ones just to undo them until they're loose. So they're now all loose, as you can hear they all rattle, and I'll just do a quick zoom in so you can see what's actually in there.